replay. Wake up your cat, because lizards are going to be running all around the house. It's Lizard Tribal versus Mirror Tribal versus 2 tribal decks that I have not yet figured out yet. Next on Commander Replay. Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have 2 new Patreon supporters in Paul Diaz and Bern Schwab. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. Welcome back, everyone! Playing some Sek'Kuar Deathkeeper today, Lizard Tribal. We find ourselves in a game for janky tribal decks. We will announce those in just 1 second. This hand looks alright. We got 2 lands, no red, sadly. But 2 lands, some ramp in the Grim Monolith. Temple of the False God will ramp us later in the game, but is a little awkward at the start. Skull Clamp for some card draw, which could be pretty good, so I think this is a very reasonable hand. So today's deck comes from one of my Patreon subscribers, Matthew. This deck rated very highly in the poll last week of which decks Patreons wanted to see me work on, so here we are with some Lizard Tribal. That'll bring it to our turn 1. Ooh, a Thran Dynamo, you say. Let's play the Forest, play the Skull Clamp, and we'll pass a turn like that. So let's take a look at what we're playing. Sek'Kuar Deathkeeper is 2 red, green, black for a 4/3 Orc Shaman. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, create a 3/1 black and red Graveborn creature token with haste. Interesting card out of Cold Snap. I have seen it do some pretty cool things in the past. As I mentioned, we are playing a Lizard Tribal deck, so very curious to see where this goes. We do have Primal Surge in the deck, so there is some chance that we could potentially just cough out our entire deck into play, and that's always a fun thing to do. So yeah. Memnar getting off to a crazy good start with a Mana Crypt, followed by a Genesis Chamber, followed by a Stoneforge Masterwork. Yeah, that's a fantastic start, is what that is. So play the land, play the Grim Monolith, and next turn we'll think about that Thran Dynamo off of the Monolith. So then that's going to be a Mana Crypt flip on the Memnarch opponent. So I actually played this Memnarch opponent the other night, and it's a Mirror Tribal deck, and it was actually surprisingly good. Like, in that game, laid down a few board wipes. Also, I laid down an Ugin in that game. And because everything's colorless in the deck, Ugin actually hits very little out of their deck. But yeah, like once it gets the right pieces together, it can actually do some stuff and really pump out a lot of tokens. So, interested to see more of that deck. Next up, we have Sydri, Galvanic Genius. A card I've seen a little bit, but not a ton. White, blue, black for a 2/2. Pay 2, non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost until end of turn. Pay white and black, target artifact creature gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. I'm not really sure what you do with this thing as a commander. Like, I get that you want like kind of an artifact theme, but I just don't know where you go necessarily to do like cool stuff with it. But anyway, we'll see what they're up to today. As I did mention, the name of this game was Janky Tribal Decks, so assumingly on some tribe or another. And then finally, we have Ramos Dragon Engine. Is 6 mana 4/4. Whenever you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Ramos for each of that spell's colors. Remove 5 counters to add 2 of each mana color to your mana pool. And they have a Nivix Guildmage down. Interesting. Alright, so things getting a bit awkward for us right here. Play the Temple of the False God. We're going to use the Grim Monolith. Play the Thran Dynamo. Hope that no one's running a Vandal Blast or anything of that sort. But all of our creatures do require red mana, and we have no red mana at this moment. Oh, there's an Urborg in play. We totally could have used the Temple. Not that makes a huge difference because, like I said, everything does require red mana, so this is going to be an awkward game if we don't find a mountain. So the Indestructible Mirror, Darksteel Mirror coming down. Had a little run-in with that the other night. Ironclaw Mirror's in play. Ew. So Ironclaw Mirror's got a Stoneforge Masterwork on it. That's not good. It's going to be a little bit of Infect. Yep, don't have anything for it right now. Foundry Inspector coming down for the Sydri opponent. I'm going to trigger the Genesis Chamber. The Ramos opponent says they're going to keep their tribe a surprise. Sydri says they're just playing artifacts. Guildmage is going to loot a card. I would sign up for a loot right now. See if we can find our way into a mountain somehow. There's that mountain. All right. So play the mountain. What to do with this precious mountain? I mean, we could actually cast Daragaz. Flying Haste Trample, you say. But I kind of just want to draw cards, quite honestly. 1/1 Death Touch, huh? A 1/1 Death Touch is very good at deterring a lot of stuff. I think we're going to play the Sigiled Skink and sacrifice it to the Skull Clamp. Genesis Chamber, ooh, and a Genesis Chamber trigger. Beautiful. So, actually we'll sacrifice the Mirror first. So, we'll get to draw 2 with Skull Clamp. We draw another Lizard and a Furnace of Wrath. That's going to take so many mountains to get that thing down. Then we didn't draw any lands right there, so I think I'm also going to shoot this guy down as well. And we draw a Wood Elves.
Perfect. So Wood Elves. Let's get yes, please, get a Taiga for sure. Need red mana. And then sacrifice this mirror and draw a bunch more cards. And now our hand's nice and full. We got some lands we can drop. What to get rid of? I'm thinking the support lizard doesn't seem the best. Opponent moves the Stoneforge Masterwork over to the Darksteel Mirror. Darksteel Mirror, a 3/4 indestructible. So opponent's going to send 2 mirror tokens into us. Sure, we'll just take. Maybe we think about going for Sek'Kuar this turn. Although, actually, we could play Furnace of Wrath, too. That's kind of cool. Maybe we want to wait on Furnace of Wrath. I'll take Construct coming down. Genesis Chamber will trigger. Prismatic Geoscope coming down for the Ramos opponent. Still don't know what the Ramos opponent's on. So, brings it back to our turn. We draw into a forest. Forests are good. Let's play the Dragon Skull Summit. Get that red mana going. I think we want to get our commander down because we've been doing a lot of sacrificing, so that seems like a good place to be. So Sek'Kuar comes down. Genesis Chamber will trigger. I'm gonna play this hissing iguana. Lizard Tribal. I mean, so far this deck is working really well. I know we have Skull Clamp out, but we're getting a little bit of help off the Genesis Chamber. But yeah, so far things are going pretty good. Oh man. So Genesis Chamber will trigger again. Make sure I read Sek'Kuar one more time. Whenever another non-token creature, so we do have to be sacrificing our actual creatures, which is unfortunate. So we'll Skull Clamp the Wood Elves. Sek'Kuar will trigger, Skull Clamp will trigger, and the Hissing Iguana will trigger. We're going to shoot down that Infect Mirror, because it's got to be a target player or Planeswalker. So we'll just start doming Ramos for 1. Is it even doming if it's 1? I don't know. What is the minimum damage required for it to be considered doming? Use the Iguana's ability. Draw with the Skull Clamp. That's a mana reflection. We have 1 open mana. A lot of X1s on the board, so I guess we send this over to the Ramos, since they don't have a random 1/1 token to block our 3/1. And then we'll play this Toxic Iguana right here. Toxic Iguanar? Iguanar, is that a typo? Are these Hissing Iguanar. Oh, I guess they're not actually iguanas, they're iguanars. Who knew? Either way, they have the creature type of lizard. Reading cards. I'm enjoying this Lizard Tribal deck, man. Don't know what's in it. I know Mana Reflection's an expensive card. It looks like the deck's operating just fine without it, though. Grim Monolith, not cheap for sure, but... I mean, the core of this deck, from what I've seen so far, actually looks pretty cheap, other than, you know, some of the mana stuff, which, yeah. Things that produce you lots of mana just tend to naturally be expensive, but... Lizard Tribal. Gonna send the Indestructible Mirror into the Sydri opponent. So, discussing the deck list with opponents that, yeah, this was submitted by a Patreon supporter, and, big fan, want to know if they'll be seeing this one. I think we will. This game, I'm enjoying this game right now. Oop, another creature died. We get to shoot something. Let's shoot the Sydri. Opponent's gonna Executioner's Capsule on the... Did they shoot the Indestructible Mirror? Yeah, they shot the Indestructible Mirror. That didn't work out so well for them. Sorry, opponent. Yep, opponent says, that's a whiff. Yep, feels bad. Yes, it does. I'm sure they have a way to get that back. It's an artifact deck, right? The only reason you play Executioner's Capsule is you can get it back, typically. Opponent gets the Scry off of the Temple. Gonna use the Geoscope. I wonder if that belongs in the Gila deck. Interesting. It is 5 mana, makes it a little bit slow, but seems like a really good way, or at least if you're on, especially if you're on a budget, to start powering up Najeela's activated ability. Not to say, I mean, well, maybe there's better ways, but if the game goes longer, which it can if Najeela gets blown up, that might be something to look at. Anyway, that's going to bring it back to our turn. We draw another lizard. Man, we have so many good cards to play right now. Play the Stomping Ground untapped. Kind of want to make sure I have a lot of red mana. Part of me wants to go Furnace of Wrath and just like start shocking people with this thing, because that sounds fun. But we are liable to take a lot of damage if that happens. Mana Reflection is probably the correct place to start. So we'll get Mana Reflection. Opponent says they meant to counter that. Yeah, that's going to make them very sad, because that's a card worth countering. It's very, very powerful. I think we go Solemn Simulacrum. Nah, let's just play the Furnace of Wrath. Oh, that's the Solemn Simulacrum. Whoops. Well, we can still play the thingy. Get a Solemn trigger, get a Genesis Chamber trigger. Keep those lands coming. More mountains, still just tons and tons of red things to cast. And then play the Furnace of Wrath. We have 1 floating. We will Skull Clamp this Mirror. Hissing Iguana, the Memnarch opponent. Draw a Skull Clamp. There's a Tribe-Elder and a Bosaiju. Use the ability. We'll do a bit of attacking. Send a couple into the Sydri. Attack a little bit that way. Next turn, we're in a pretty good place to just, like, go absolutely crazy with the Skull Clamp. Like, I completely understand that we could play this Daragaz, but I really just kind of want to, like, use this thing and try to kill people that way. That just seems so much more fun. And even, we may not win because of it, but I don't care. I'm having a good time. Opponent's going to do some blocking. We'll spread these around a little bit. Say always yes to the ability. So opponent's losing some life off of the continued shocking. Opponent lays down a Voltaic Key. Going to use the Voltaic Key on the Mana Crypt. So opponent's going to go to combat with the mirrors. And sending the indestructible mirror at us, sure. We'll probably be throwing the Solemn in front of that. With Furnace of Wrath down, that's, even these small creatures, the 2/2s, kind of threatening with double damage. You really don't want to be letting too many of those through. So how many things are coming at us? Looks like just the Darksteel Mirror, so we'll throw the Solemn Simulacrum in front. Not that we need, like, that much more card draw, but keep the card draw coming, why not? So, a bunch of creatures dying, a bunch of triggers going on the stack. Sek'Kuar will trigger, Hissing Iguanar will trigger. We'll just kind of keep spreading these around. Sydri seems to have more life than other opponents at the moment. So opponents at 23, 28, and 24, respectively. Fabricate for our opponent. Let's see what they go find. Mana Crypt coming down. That is the card that they search for. Yeah, trying to get caught up on lands. I can completely understand that. Opponent did lay down their Memnarch, by the way. That's something we'll need to be careful of. I would love to find a way to get rid of that. We could just play Daragaz and swing for a whole bunch. That is a reasonable way to go about achieving that. Might be Daragaz time soon. We'll see. Opponent's going to lay down a Mana Reflection of their own. Seems pretty good. Chit-chatting with the Sydri opponent. They big fan of Architects. I like Architects. They have a new album coming out pretty soon. I'm excited about. And discussing other metal bands as well. Amaranth and Orion are some bands that I'm really big on, as well as Orden Ogan. All bands from Europe, although I sent some of those bands over to one of my buddies, and he said to me, I'm kind of over metal bands pretending to be pirates, cowboys, and dragon slayers. I'm like, what? That's the best part. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, back to the game of Magic. Dictative Karametra's down. That's a thing. There's a burgeoning for us. Don't think we need a Bosaiju yet. So play the Forest. We are now tapping for 3 mana a turn. That is many manas. Start with Daragaz. So, I mean, the problem is that if we don't kill Memnarch, then they just steal all of our stuff. Especially with that much mana production. So, Daragaz into play. Oh, we have I way overtapped. We have so much mana. Whoops. Play the Sprouting Thrynax. Looks like we need a green. Play the Sakura Tribe-Elder. Play the Burgeoning. Play this Lizard guy. We have 1 floating. We'll throw that on a token. Iguanar is going to trigger. Howling Mine and a Horn of Greed. Probably don't need those at this point. Sacrifice the Tribe-Elder. More triggers going on this deck. Oh, man. Iguanar again. Tribe-Elder. Let's get a Forest, I guess. If we sack 1 or 2 more creatures, we'll sacrifice the Death Toucher. That'll give us more Graveborns. We can only tap for 3 mana at a time. Maybe we'll wait on that. Yeah, we'll wait on that. So send the Daragaz into the Mirror opponent. Send this. Send a lot of this other stuff into the Ramos opponent. Ramos always makes me kind of nervous. We'll leave back the Death Toucher. It's always good to have a Death Toucher hanging around. We want to keep that creature. I think we'll attack like that. Man, Furnace of Wrath. Tough to cast with that triple red. Makes 1/1s and 2/2s feel really deadly. So another creature death trigger. Memnarch opponent down to 3. Play the Thran Dynamo. Gonna use the Thran Dynamo, make some mana. Guanar, shoot there. Coat of Arms, well that would have been helpful. Skull Clamp right there. So, last time I played that Mirror opponent, they had a much better showing. They got things like Mirror Works, and was it Mirror Matrix, and some of those other janky cards I've mirrored in. They were able to search for mirrors each turn. It was a Scarland Thrynax. Sacrifice this Mirror token. Probably need to play the Scarland Thrynax because it's a free sack outlet. Seems like a probably good place to be, although, yeah, I think we'll do that. Keep on Skull Clamping. It just keeps going. What's this thing do? Gets a counter for each time it was kicked. Yeah, we'll just more sacrifice fodder. Play this guy and pass the turn. Don't feel like we need Horn of Greed or Howling Mine, so we'll pitch those. Pitch beside you. Opponent says I'll have to bring his cat next game. He likes eating lizards. Yeah, my cat chases him around the house too. Still not actually sure what the Ramos opponent is playing. I do know that they'll be able to make a ton of mana. Opponent plays land, Burgeoning will trigger. Opponent says he can't describe his deck as anything faster than Glacial. Okay, that seems fair. We'll play this Temple right here. Get a Scry off of the Burgeoning. It's a land. We'll put that to the bottom. We have plenty of lands at the moment. Oh, Swarm Intelligence. I just opened one of these in a pack the other day. The reason that that's interesting is that I don't open very many packs. So when I see cards, I'm like, huh, interesting. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Pretty good card out of Hour of Devastation. Very powerful. Up to this point, I have not seen very many people play this thing. I know it only fits in like certain types of decks. You don't just jam it everywhere, but that's a really powerful effect. If you see one in a trade binder, go ahead and pick that up now. If it becomes relevant with like a new commander down the road, you're going to want to have a couple copies of those. Hour of Devastation rares are just going to be, they're going to hold value. So anyway, that brings it back to our turn. I think we're just going to go for the coat of arms, not try to showboat it too much. And, wow, Thran Dynamo's tapping for 6. Is Karamitra any permanent? Whenever a player taps land for mana, that player adds Mana Reflections, tap a permanent. Oh, Mana Reflection's a permanent. Man, so is there a Mana Reflection that's doing that? There's the coat of arms. So our stuff should get huge. It does. We will go to combat. Send a bunch of stuff this way. And just kind of spread these around. Apologize to our opponents for rigging a deck that's much stronger than I thought it would be. Who would have thought that Lizard Tribal was really good? I know that we had the Skull Clamp, and the Skull Clamp really did a lot of work. It's decidedly probably a less good deck when you don't have Skull Clamp, but I don't know. It's still, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by what happened this game. And I know there were some oddities in this game too. We got a Mana Reflection down. Even more unusual in that our opponent got Dictate of Karamitra down, so that means that we just have like way more mana than we ever normally would in a game, but whew, yeah. And we drew like 40 cards, something crazy like that. So both of our opponents go to -66 and -68. Wow. So yeah, Lizard Tribal. Let's go take a quick look at this deck. It is pretty ridiculous. So we have a couple 2-drops, couple 1-drops. Almost most of this stuff dies to Skull Clamp, which is good for the shenanigans we had going on during that game. Horn of Greed. So we have a couple ways to draw Tower of Fortunes. That's a funny card. Solemn Simulacrum, some more lizards. Furnace of Wrath doing some pretty good work in that game. Card that I'll probably have to start looking at more. I only really run it in like Ashling and maybe 1 or 2 other decks. Ashling, Naheb, Heartless, those kind of decks. I kind of got away from it from Boros just because most of the Boros decks I play, I can't actually cast triple red. I usually only have 2 red sources because I do use a lot of colorless lands in those decks. Anyway, so we got Coat of Arms as we saw in that game, some bigger lizards, a Cage Sun, Mana Reflection, Soul of the Harvest, Warstorm Surge, Primal Surge, by the way, is in the deck. I think I did mention that, but it is a Primal Surge deck, so that is one way that we can get there. And Zendikar Resurgent, yeah, so Lizard Tribal, way better than I ever expected it would be. Granted, we were also facing like other janky tribal decks. We weren't facing other super high power decks, but very impressed about what just transpired in this game, so yeah. If you guys are looking for something janky to play, Lizard Tribal might be the deck for you. I want to thank Matthew for submitting this deck to me. Super sweet. I had a really good time with it. Just a really enjoyable experience. And other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching. So, Ugin exiling some stuff, and we will pass turn like that. And the Yep, other opponent scoops it, so only the Mirror opponent left. Mirror Turbine coming down.